Welcome to Asian Book Club, where we highlight Asian and Asian American authors. We are your hosts,
Jamae and Sabangan.
and I'm Stephen Park, and we are here with another episode of The Boy with the Bookstore by Sarah Echevarria Smith. Last podcast, we talked briefly about how Joelle and Max did their first date at Cathedral Park, or Cathedral...
City Park.
Yeah, Cathedral City Park. And we had mentioned that we had gotten engaged at that same location. For people that aren't in the PNW or in Portland or know that park, it's a pretty popular spot. It's not this hidden off the track place. A lot of things happen there. If people have like quinceañeras or other events like wedding, engagement photos, I don't know, you photo for band or something, people will have their photos taken on this little platform.
Yes.
But when we got engaged, you didn't really know what was happening, right?
Right. And even though we've said this story to so many of our friends already, it never gets old.
So I am gonna tell it from my perspective because I feel like I had a little bit more information than you did.
Yes.
So when we got engaged, all Jamae knew was that we were gonna go somewhere, and I asked her to dress somewhat nicely.
Yeah.
And so it was a fall day. In Portland, we don't get a lot of sunny and fall days, so we kind of hit like a nice weather spot where we got a lot of sun that day. And I was trying to get everything ready, and luckily one of my friends had helped me set everything up.
Yeah.
Her and her husband had gone to the spot before, and they put down roses that I had bought and a couple of fake candles just to kind of light it up.
Yes.
I was trying to plan the time so that it's not too dark, but it's also not too bright outside, so that the candles can still have their effect.
Yes, the luminous effect.
Yeah. But the issue is that Jamae tends to run late often. So I think on this day, I was rushing you a little bit as we were trying to get out the door. It wasn't bad, but on top of the stress that I already had, I think it felt much more rushed. So we get in the car, and I'm driving her there, and I forget the drive aspect. I just remember asking you questions to almost verify that you wanted to be with me.
Huh.
I can't remember exactly what I was asking, but it was more just like, do you see a future with me? And you answered correctly all the way through. So we get to the spot where you park at the top. And my goal was that I could have your family involved in this, because your family's pretty far away from us.
Right. They're all the way on Guam.
Right. So the way that I thought that we could get involved, because it's way too much money to actually fly them in, and this was during COVID, so
Right.
flying wouldn't have been safe anyway.
Right.
But I figured I can FaceTime them in, because we already FaceTime them often. And when we parked, I had told you that I was hoping to show your family the park that we were going to,
Yeah.
and so that we should FaceTime them.
Which I bought.
And you had no questions about it.
No, I had no questions along the way. I did keep thinking, why do you keep asking me so many questions? I was pretty much focused on putting together this like Christmas list thing on my Instagram. And the fact that you wanted to bring me here and show my family Cathedral Park, it made sense to me. It was like, yeah, it's a beautiful place, and we're in the height of the pandemic lockdown, so they can't be here. Why not show them the place?
And so from this parking spot, we're actually at the top, and we're going to be descending staircases to get to the spot that my friend has set up and where we can get pictures. And so Jamae's talking to her family, and I think I had the phone at the time, and we start walking towards these stairs. And the other thing is, I had also set up a photographer so that we had someone to record all the events, so
Right.
that we didn't have to try to do it ourselves.
Right.
And so we're at the top, we're going down the stairs, and as we're going down, this photographer is aiming her camera right at us. And instead of this drawing any red flags to you, your first thought is...
we are in someone else's pictures.
Yep.
So I was trying to drag Steven away from the stairs closer to me because I thought they were taking pictures of like the couples that were on the other like platforms.
Mm-hmm. So you're pulling me away. I'm trying to get us back into the shot. So I'm pulling you back in. And so we start descending these stairs to get all the way to the bottom. And as we're going down, you see this clear view of this platform. And this platform, my friend has beautifully laid out the roses and the candles.
Which I think was a setup for someone else.
Mm-hmm. You thought someone else was doing some kind of event or photo. And you kept thinking this all the way up to the point where we're on that actual platform and walking around.
Yes.
And my friend had done such a good job of actually hiding off in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And so we actually didn't really see her until afterwards.
Right.
The bad part was I have your family on the phone, and so I'm trying to figure out, okay, how can I propose and still have your family here? I also don't want to hold a camera as I'm proposing.
Right.
So I place the phone down, and then I think it gets knocked over or something happens where the camera is no longer facing us at all.
No.
And they're just looking at the sky.
Yes.
So they get a view of the sunset. I don't think they could really hear what we're saying because it's pretty far away.
And while they were looking up at the sunset and I was watching you, I didn't realize until the moment you started getting down on your knees that I realized that the photographer, the roses, the candles, the whole setup was for us.
You mean all my hard work? It was for you?
Well, yes, exactly. It was for me. And I think what was really sweet and funny at the same time was the first thing that you pulled out was a ring pop. Because in a previous trip, you had this huge ring pop and you were asking, would I accept it if you asked me with a ring pop? I think that was
Universal Studios when we were in LA.
Yes.
And yeah, I remember asking you that. I think we still have that photo. The sad part is now the ring pop I see on some of the reality shows that we watch, like Love is Blind or something like that. And the people that give it are so cringy. So now in my mind, I'm like, was I cringy?
I think it was cute.
Yes, I'm glad. Yeah, that moment was quite a while ago.
And just so we're clear, I said yes.
Yes. I think when I do hear about Cathedral Park, that is the first thing that comes to mind now. But that's our story of Cathedral Park and how we have experienced it. Maybe we'll put up photos into our Instagram, so if anyone's curious, you can kind of take a look.
Yeah, you can see what a COVID pandemic engagement looks like.
Yeah, because we still had our masks on at the time.
Yes. We'll
post photos online. Y'all can have a look and enjoy if you want to. But other than that, let's go into our recommendation for the week.
So our recommendation for the week is Tiffany Wong of Tiffany Wong Art. Tiffany is a multidisciplinary artist who's currently exploring healing and Black, Indigenous, and person of color liberation through painting and writing. She also facilitates workshops for Black, Indigenous, and people of color folks to deepen healing through inter-sovereignty and creative expression. Some of her workshops include Color Study, the Inner Child Edition, Color Study and Embodiment, and Inner Child Healing and Creativity. Although these are past workshops, recordings are available at a discounted price. Tiffany Wong is also the founder of More Liberation Shop on Etsy. Definitely take a look at it. Learn more about her work through her website at TiffanyWongVisualArt.com, Tiffany Wong, Tiffany, Wong, W-O-N-G, and via Instagram at Tiffany Wong Art.
Yep, and that's our recommendation for the week. Okay, so third read of The Boy with the Bookstore by Sarah Echevarria Smith. What have we gotten to so far?
So far, Max has been pouty and mean. Joelle paid him back through messing with his book club, and then Joelle and Max start mending their relationship by playing hooky.
Right, and by Joelle paying him back, you mean she tried to get back at him, but it actually turned into a success.
Right, it's a success in that Max is angry and everyone else is enjoying themselves.
Right. So we're now in our read of chapters 13 through 18. And in this read, there is content warning. There's the same content warning, but it's multiple times of that same content warning.
Yes, and it's open door sexy time.
Yeah. So if you're a parent and want to listen to this with your child, I mean, feel free to, but there is lots of sexy descriptions.
Yes.
So with that said, I think it's fair to say that Max and Joelle are now in a period where they are getting along.
Yes. More than getting along.
Mm-hmm.
In this read, we continue with the playing hooky.
Mm-hmm.
And this playing hooky also includes day drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Then sexy time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they get together, then they get together, and this is the first time their relationship goes past kissing, or the first time they have body intimacy past that initial bookstore incident that we saw in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
So I am finding out that I may not be a big romantic, what are these called? Erotica books?
Well, this is not erotica.
Oh. There's a lot of descriptions. If this isn't erotica, is this an erotica?
No.
Oh.
It's definitely a romance book, but it's not erotica.
Oh. Well, I'm finding out that there's a blurred line between romance and erotica in my mind, and this is a little closer to what I deem to be erotica, and it's fine. I think it's okay.
Did you read it with the audiobook or with the digital book?
I read it with the audiobook. The voices are still the voices. I actually commend the female narrator in this case, because she does do a good job of carrying over the story of everything that's happening. Max's voice still feels very try-hard.
I see.
And a little cringy to listen to. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know if this content is exactly what I search for when I'm reading.
That's fair.
Yeah. But what does happen in this story is that Joelle and Max start to hook up, and they start to find out a little bit more about each other.
Right. They become more vulnerable with each other. They're
Right.
sharing parts of their lives that they don't really share with everyone else, especially for Max.
Mm-hmm.
And Max, after the hooking up, does reveal why he's been, how to put this nicely, why he's been a mean a-hole for the longest time.
Yeah, he describes himself pretty perfectly for how I've been thinking about Max. And what he says is, a moody biker punk who woke up on the wrong side of the bed.
Times 100.
Yeah, for me, that describes him to a T.
Yes, and so he does bring up that his childhood was rough, and he was passed from relatives to friends, and not really having his mom be there because his mom was an alcoholic.
And his dad passed away early, so his mom was the only one to raise him.
Whenever she was around.
Right, besides him being passed along to other relatives.
Exactly, and he felt like he wasn't wanted.
Right.
And so this marred the way that he saw the world, and he felt like he was alone. And that made him this moody, grumpy person because his mom was trying to get back into his life.
Right.
At this present day.
Right. So we kind of start off the read with Joelle learning about this backstory for Max.
Yes.
And we also almost end the read with this backstory being rehashed by a phone call from Max's mom.
Yes.
I describe this character, Moody Max.
Yeah.
So as Max and Joelle are coming back from a date,
Yes.
we get that phone call from Max's mom, and this sets Max off to being angry again and being upset, doesn't want to talk, and he kind of keeps pushing Joelle away.
Right. When Joel's trying to make things better, or at least change his perspective.
Right. It gives us a sense of what Max is going through. It's hard for me to put myself in Max's shoes in terms of that experience. So I don't know if I was fully able to empathize with Max. I have this very strong bias from our first two reads of already not really liking the character of Max.
Totally.
So for me, it just still felt like a character quality of Max that didn't make me sympathize or make him a more rounded character. It just was a thing that had happened to him, and now he is the person that he is.
Definitely. I also felt the same, that it was difficult to empathize, not because I don't have the same experience, but because I still don't understand why he had to be mean towards Joelle.
Right.
He wasn't mean towards his customers. He wasn't mean towards anyone else except for Joelle. Right. And we see that again when they're driving home from this date, when Joelle tries to step in and he's already in a bad mood because he notices that his mom is trying to call him.
Right.
And he's back to being mean, again, specifically to Joelle.
Right. And we'll come back to this more towards the end of the episode, because I think it plays a lot into the differences of Max and Joelle. And for me, at least, it continues to put that notion of that separation between white and Asian cultures and how much it affects our personal relationships with other people. But before we get there, I do think there's a part of Max that I do feel some kind of positive for. Because overall, as a story and a romance novel that centers around Joel and Max, Max does make Joelle feel happy.
Right.
He finds a lot of ways to make her feel wanted and seen and cared for.
Fair.
Which is the thing that Joelle also feels like she lacks sometimes.
Definitely.
In that way, do you think that Max might be the right person for Joelle?
I think he could be. Like, the fact, like you mentioned, the fact that he does put her first. Like, the first time they do have sexy time together, he does focus all his attention on Joelle. And later, in one of their dates, he does remember the fact that she wanted to go to Paris, that her dream was to be in culinary school, and he did the second best thing, which was to go and bring her to a chef who was well known.
Yeah, that was my ick. Because remember in our last, I knew that this would happen. Max would end up playing the heroic character somehow. And yeah, he didn't take her to culinary school, but he did something culinary. It was fine. I don't know.
I mean, as a bookseller, I'm pretty sure he's not making enough money to send her to culinary school.
True. Well, maybe if he worked some of these days that he's taking off all the time, he'd make more money. I don't know. I still had some icks through this read with Max.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to do my continuation of red flags from Max. So one is still that he continues his moody characterizations.
Yes.
Second is that after him and Joelle end up having their time together, he wants to do something sweet for her. And his first thought is to make her a croissant.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, dude, so you've never cooked. Like, there's no way that you're going to go from, I'm just going to make something for this person, to let me make a croissant.
Right.
Like, do you know what lamination is? Do you know the temperature that it needs?
Right.
Do you know how much rest it needs in the fridge or the freezer?
And the fact that he's poured all of this flour all over the place and got it on both his pets.
And it makes me think he probably doesn't know how to cook.
Yes.
Red flag. The other part is that he uses this line. So he's saying things to Joelle to make her realize that she's wanted. That he's been wanting her. Which is nice. He talks about how he's confused about why Joelle finds it so hard to believe that he likes her. But the other thing he says, and I'm going to try to avoid using some actual words because they're a little icky. But what Max says is, did you feel my eggplant emoji against you? Your bottom is a faxing national treasure. I hope y'all could input the words that you could figure out, but yeah, I don't know. Is that sexy? Like,
no.
Okay,
no.
like, but genuinely, like, if a person that you liked had said that to you.
No.
It's just a weird thing to say. I mean, there is that song from the 90s. Step back, you're dancing kind of close.
Right.
I feel a little bump coming through.
Right.
For you.
Right.
So, it's been said.
It's been said, but I personally don't think it's romantic. I feel like someone has said that to me before, but I didn't feel sparks.
Yikes. It wasn't me.
No.
and that's Shaggy. Yikes. So, I mean, they're getting along. And once again, the big thing is that Max makes Joelle happy. And
can I add another ick?
Yeah.
So in that same conversation where he talks about her bottom being a national treasure, he also stops her from talking by putting his hand over her mouth. Like, as a hypochondriac, I physically shuddered. And let me read this on page 160. It says, "In an instant his hand is over my mouth, muffling my words. He's like the sexiest, most delicious muzzle ever. No guy has ever been ballsy enough to cover my mouth to force me to stop talking." No!
Yeah, the first thing I thought about coming off of that was that incident with the oven and him putting his dirty shirt into the oven.
Right.
The other ick that I found in this read was that he also doesn't make his bed in the mornings. He's not the most clean guy.
Right.
I'm sure they're wearing shoes in his apartment.
Yes.
I don't know. So I want to get to the part where we talk about the different families and why this all matters, but I also want to mention that in this read, we find out that Joelle also reciprocates a very sweet action by planning out that Oregon coast road trip.
Yes.
Makes Max very happy because he's never been on a road trip before.
Right.
And they have a lot of fun and more fun. But that's all fine because I want to talk about this relationship with Max and Joelle. I know that this story is meant to be sweet and caring, but that's not what I really get from this. For me, it continues to bring up and highlight these differences between the cultural sides of Max and Joelle.
Yeah.
And one thing is, when Joelle describes her relationship with her family, she's constantly talking about what can she do for them. So she explains that the things that she does around the house that she feels like she needs to continue are helping around, helping to pay bills, cleaning things, cooking, taking her family to appointments, figuring out phones and computers and electronics for her family.
Right.
And the way that she describes her relationship with her family is, and this is a quote, "My family is all I have, and if I lose them, I lose everything." This is in stark contrast to what we see from Max.
Yes.
To Max, his mom, who is his family, and granted, he's had a very different relationship with her.
Yeah.
She hasn't been there for Max the way that Joelle's family has been there for her.
Right.
But we have to remember that Joelle's family also almost lost everything, and Joelle had to offer up her college funds so that they can continue to, live somewhat comfortably and start to regain all that back.
Absolutely.
So it's not like Joelle's life was extremely easy either.
Exactly.
But the viewpoint of Max and Joelle into the relationships with the people that raised them is very different.
Absolutely. And I thought that what was interesting is that there were people who raised Max. When I think about how his upbringing could have been different, he could have been sent into the foster care system.
Right.
He could have been homeless.
Right.
But instead, even though these people eventually weren't happy to have him, they still took care of him.
Right. And my thought, and this is me trying to create a full character more than anything else. It's not me trying to put negative traits to Max or create situations, but what my brain thinks is that if he's going to different family members that are originally willing to accept him, but then all of a sudden don't accept him, it's like, well, was there something in the way that Max was reacting to him being in that household that was maybe causing that situation to happen so repetitively?
Right.
Maybe not. Maybe just the family didn't really want him there from the beginning, but that's kind of what I think of things.
For sure.
I also think that Max has this altered perception of what family is, because the way that he sees Joelle's family is this very exterior view where everyone's happy, right? They're in the shop, and so everyone's getting along all the time. There is absolutely no way that Joel's family is like that all the time. Their families have arguments, they have fights, they learn to get over those fights together, and that's what makes their relationship stronger.
Exactly.
From the way that he describes how he sees Joelle's family, it almost makes me think that he doesn't understand the depth that it takes to eventually form that bond.
Right.
There's a moment where he talks to Joelle in the very beginning about how amazing her family is and everything. And Joelle's response is, they bestow their unsolicited advice on me constantly without asking. Not all of it great, mind you. And yeah, those are parts of Joelle's life growing up that she's probably had to struggle and learn how to deal with.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Max sees Joelle getting along with her family, so he's like, oh, your life must have been amazing. It's like, nope, not how it works.
Right. And I think another thing is that his perception is, oh, they're together, so together must mean happy, because mine is broken and mine is unhappy.
Right. I joke around about Max's red flags, his little quirks that I wouldn't want to live with.
Right.
But truly, in this relationship, I would think of this as a red flag, is their perception on what family truly is. How do you see this familial mindset coming into play through their relationship?
I think it'll be rocky moving forward in the relationship. I think it was very easy in the fight that they had that all of a sudden Joelle was saying, okay, I stepped too far, and then Max saying, you don't know my life. And that felt like such an easy argument and like a band-aid. And unfortunately, if they do start a family of their own, it's going to be even rockier. Because their ideas and their ideals are very different. Right.
So in that fight where they're in the car and Max's phone rings because his mom has called.
Right.
One of Joelle's hopes for Max is that he can then call his mom so that they can mend that relationship. And this is where they kind of butt heads.
Right.
I don't think it's going to come up in this novel. I think this novel is meant to be a happy read. This is just my pessimistic side coming into play and just really over-analyzing relationships.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of book clubs, right? Is figuring out which parts ring out to us.
Right.
And that's what's ringing out to us.
Right. I just feel bad because I feel like I'm being a downer in all of this. Just being like, their relationship won't work. This is terrible. This is Steven and Ingrid all over again.
For real. I mean, it's not even the writers. We're not critiquing the writer. We're just looking at this one character and knowing that if Max were in our lives, this is how we would feel about Max.
Right. And beyond that, we're, at least me, and I think maybe you too, is I'm taking my personal experiences and saying if these were the things that I were faced with, and this was a person that I was looking at across the way, these would be my fears, is that Max wouldn't have the same values in relationships. So then, let's say me and Max were in a relationship, then I'd be afraid that he'd run off on me at the first sign of something going wrong.
Right. Of argument or of disagreement.
Right. So, with all that said, what are your actual predictions of where the book will take us?
Well, like you've mentioned, this is a romance novel, and we're probably not going to see things fall apart. So I'm predicting that Max is going to reconsider Joelle's advice and begrudgingly call back his mom or answer the phone. And I think they're gonna live happily ever after.
I know. I think the same thing too. I think Max is gonna call his mom. They're gonna mend this trialed relationship that has been so wrong for so many years.
Yes.
And then Joelle's gonna go to culinary school, and all the pets are gonna live happily together forever. Absolutely, the cat won't eat pumpkin, and then the dog won't eat the cat. That will not happen. But we won't know until we go into our next read. So where is our next read?
Our next read is the final section, which is chapters 19 to 24, and this also includes the epilogue.
Right. And so if you actually really like Max, I'd love to hear your viewpoint.
Absolutely.
I know there are people out there rooting for him.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just probably not one of those people.
Neither am I.
But if you want to share your opinions, how can people reach out to us?
You can email us at asianbookclubpod@gmail.com, or you can join the conversation on Instagram at asianbookclubpod.
Yeah, and you can also reach us at our website, which is asianbookclubpod.com, which has our bookstore with our past recommendations and our current recommendations for reads that you can look into.
And a great way to support us is to rate, review, and subscribe.
Yep, and other than that, make sure to be happy, be healthy, and read a book.
Ingat! Bye!
Bye.